I think you need to go get a urinalysis, because if you're thinking that we're going to go take somebody's gold, I mean, what I want is I want a peaceful, I don't want to take anybody's anything. I want a peaceful revolution here. So, you know, my, China, China was once, up until the great financial crisis, and that's when my world really turned. Up until then, I didn't know obviously I didn't know anything about Bitcoin. But the thing is that I was trapped in that hamster wheel of my own. I was always trying to outrun inflation, the price of money. I was trying to somehow increase my wealth, or even just preserve my wealth. And it was constant work. I mean, it was such a pain in the ass. And, you know, up until the great financial crisis, China had almost $1.3 trillion in U.S. Treasuries. Right now, and they saw the writing on the wall, because that's when we really started quantitative easing. And when I say printing, by the way, I'm not talking about rolling off a printing press. I'm talking about all the methods that the U.S. Treasury and the Fed have to increase liquidity. In other words, to put money, whether it's base money or M2, into the system. So, after quantitative easing and basically China could see the handwriting on the wall, they started selling them off. They're down to $760 billion of treasuries. That's the same as Japan now. That's not much. Japan, I think, is still the largest holder, but barely. And do you know who is also one of the largest holders of U.S. treasuries? As an aside here, it's Tether. Tether's got like $115 billion. They have more U.S. treasuries now than Germany. They're way up there in the league. But just getting back to what you were talking there, yeah, we can print money. We could basically demonetize gold, I guess, in a game theory. I think that'd be really risky. And gold. Remember, I told you the properties of good money, not currency, just money itself. And if you look at those, one of them I said was durable. So gold, beats Bitcoin. That is probably, if you've ever watched Chris Kuiper's reports, from Fidelity, and that great chart they have on what makes good money. And Bitcoin is just kicks ass here. Gold can't hold a candle to it, except in one thing, and that's durability. It has a real proven track record. So, again, I'm probably going to bore people here, but let's just look at the history of money for just a minute. I won't go long. Modern human beings have been around 300,000 years, and I'm not going to go all that way back. But I will say that you're, a big strapping guy, a hockey player. If you met one of your human ancestors a couple 100,000 years ago, and you're walking along the shores of the Nile, and you happen to come across this gal, the two of you are going to recognize each other. She'll probably be smaller, but you'll know who you are. We had Neanderthals living with us during this period in that area, especially up in Southern Europe. Now, you wouldn't you'd recognize them maybe, but you'd go, that's not a human. But nonetheless, we were mating together at that time, and we won't go down that rabbit hole. We'll just say that basically during that period, that whole period of time, we're talking hundreds of thousands of years, we really didn't need money. We were hunter gatherers, and we were out there just killing anything we could. There were real saber-toothed tigers that lived in that period. And if you look at the bone breaks of some of the ancient people, they're pretty brutal. They're almost like rodeo riders. I mean, they were up close doing combat with some of these animals. So 13,000 years ago, the last ice age, the Pleistocene, melted, and within 3,000 years, all around the world, I mean, in about 5 or 6 places, we transitioned as a human species. We transitioned to farmers, and we could have 2 to 3 more kids. We got bigger. We could form not just clans, but now we form tribes, then tribal nations, city-states, region-states, and nation-states, and empires. And during that whole time, so for the last 10,000 years, that's been what we've been looking for. We have been trying to find money. And we have used every damn thing you can think of for money. Most Bitcoiners already know about the rocks on Yak. They know about shells and bees and every other thing. But, we used everything. I mean, leather, even tobacco. We used, and where I come from, we finally figured out that corn was kind of a pain in the ass and to transport around there. So we distilled it into something that was a lot more durable, condensed liquid, and that's whiskey. I've got one of them sitting right back there, Big Nose Kate. She was the girlfriend of Doc Holliday, by the way. quite a character she was too. She lived all the way up until World War II. Anyway, I don't want to make this too long. So that whole period, and we went through all these different things. And, once you get past the collectible stage of a money, you're looking at the next stages, that store of value, medium of exchange, unit of account. And the most important in my mind, I know Peter Dunworth was disagreeing a little bit, but the most important for me is that store of value, that base layer. And we eventually, almost worldwide, we came to these base metals, silver and gold. And that's what you were talking about. Well, silver was good for small coinage, small transactions, a primitive lightning system. But gold was the base layer to money. And again, I don't have anything against gold. I've held gold in the past. I've had gold stolen from me and, in physical property, which is always a risk. And so I just don't hold it anymore. I have transitioned totally to Bitcoin. Once you understand Bitcoin, you realize you just got the royal flush. I know I've said this before, but it's true. And if you're in a poker table and you get the royal flush, you better have a good poker face. You better hope that there's a big pile in front of you because you're not going to stop betting. You won. And if you hold Bitcoin, you've won. So I just pushed all my chips in some time ago. That's all I got. I just have Bitcoin.
I would love for you to, so you brought up something, there's a handful of things I want to talk about here. Just, the Tether stuff, something that we'll get into, but you just brought up something that I want to touch on because we talked about it offline a little bit, but wrench attacks and just security in general, because this goes into part of your story. You mentioned that you have gold stolen from you before.
Yeah.
And it's a real thing, obviously. And so I'd love for you to touch on this because it's part of your story in the sense of you just taking some of your stuff down, right? And I'm taking some of the stuff off my truck. I'm not going to talk about Bitcoin for a while. So I'd love for you to unpack this a little bit.
If you want the answer to that question right there and you like that spicy clip, check it out here. Come on, we'll see you in there. But if you want the full interview in its entirety, all the spicy clips put together, and you're not going to want to miss it, believe me, then check that out here. Come on, we'll see you in there. Do it.